First, before we hop into this video, I want to say that I recorded this before Shining Revelry was announced, and I'd like to quickly kind of give my 2 cents on this before this set releases. I'll have a reworked version of this video kind of once we've had more time with it, a few weeks with the set. In general, I would say that newer sets have been really solid and they've been adding exciting things to the meta and have been quite meta as it's gone on. So it's very possible that Shining Revelry will be a really cool set. However, looking at a lot of the EX Pokemon inside it, I wouldn't say that it immediately springs to mind as like, wow, this is going to be the most powerful set, even though, again, there's some really great cards in here. I still think this list is going to be really, really useful, but of course, with a brand new set, things could change in some really big ways. However, here is a great list for you right now if you are pulling packs as to what you should open in Pokemon Pocket for new players. All right, now on to the video I recorded like one day before Shining Revelry was announced. What pack should you open if you are just hopping into Pokemon Pocket? This is a question I get all the time, and in this video, I'm going to try to break down which decks are easily made from some of these packs and which packs you can kind of stay away from because they really don't make much in the meta right now. With so many sets out there, we've got Genetic Apex, the 3 packs there, Char, Pikachu, Mewtwo, we have Mythical Island, we have Space-Time Smackdown, we have Triumphant Light. There are a lot of different options, and I'm going to try to give you the best advice I possibly can on where I would start if I was jumping into the game right now. First, I'm going to start off with the assumption that there isn't a specific card you're looking for. If there is a specific card you're looking for and there's one deck that you want to make more than anything, then you just need to focus on that pack. A good resource for something like this is the website Pokemon Zone. I really like this site. You're able to search through every pack and decide which cards you want to go for. So if you really, really want to make a Palkia deck, excuse me, I think you have a pretty good idea where you'll find it. But in general, there is a ton of great resources there. Shout out to Bombo, who I kind of consulted with a little bit on where to put some of these packs. I had a pretty good idea how I wanted this list, but I wanted to bounce it off someone. So big shout out to them and big shout out to their site. Now, outside of you just saying, I need to make a Pikachu deck, where do you start? For my money and my time, there are 2 clear options for where you should start when you are opening packs. And you get to decide between these 2 because they are pretty similar and share a lot of cards. They are both in Space-Time Smackdown, and that is Palkia and Dialga. These 2 packs are pretty incredible, and I think there are good arguments for starting with either one of these. I feel like I want to give the edge a little bit more to Palkia sometimes because it can make some really solid decks all on its own, and it also has one of the most valuable cards in the game inside of its pack, which is Cyrus. That being said, if you're opening Dialga, you would be able to generate enough pack points to make Cyrus. I'll talk about that in a little bit because I do think it's important to remember that you don't necessarily need to open one specific pack like Palkia to get Cyrus. If you're opening Dialga consistently, you will generate enough pack points to craft something like Cyrus. So outside of that, let's talk about these 2 that I think are the best to open right now, Dialga and Palkia. Dialga is a great set with a lot of powerful cards inside it. You would be able to, of course, create Dialga decks that can power up lots of different decks with metal energy. I almost called it steel right there. I'm too used to VGZ sometimes. You could power up multiple decks with Dialga, and it has lots of options in this set all by itself. So you could make a Yanmega Dialga deck with something like this. It also has access to things like Pachirisu and Luxray, which is quite cool, and it has some of the best fighting cards in the entire game in it right now. This has the Rampardos line, the Lucario line, and the Gallade line, all in this one pack, which is pretty incredible. Of course, it also has Darkrai EX, which is an amazing card as well, and some of my favorite metal cards. This has Heatran, and this also has Bronzong, which is pretty fun. However, the new Bronzong I like a lot better. This, of course, includes Giant Cape as well as Dawn. Really, really good card. There are a few things that are missing from this to make it an absolutely perfect pack, but Dialga by itself is a really, really good setup, and you can make a lot of decks out of it. Now let's talk about Palkia, which in some ways I think my heart leans a little more towards, just because first off, water is just so incredibly good, and this has a super easy deck that can win you a ton of games. Palkia has, of course, Palkia EX as well as Manaphy. Manaphy, a lot like Dialga, is a great card for powering up tons of different decks, especially with water energy that will become more and more useful the more packs you open outside of this as well, right? Not only do you get those cards, you also have access to Weavile, which is a very cool card. You are kind of stuck between Darkrai and Weavile, which is a little unfortunate, right? You have Garchomp, which is fun, but not as meta. You have Bastiodon, which I absolutely love for this setup, and I do think that is a really, really strong card that you can put into a really cool Bastiodon Skarmory deck. Skarmory is in both packs, so you can make a really fun metal deck with that as well. The other big reason that this set is strong, really strong, is its supporter cards. It has the Tool Rocky Helm, which is great. The other Giant Cape, amazing. And it has Cyrus. Cyrus is probably the most useful supporter card in the game outside of things like Pokeball and Professor's Research. So you can't really go too wrong opening either Dialga or Palkia. I think they're both really, really strong. Bombo over at Pokemon Zone leads more towards Dialga. I lean a little more towards Palkia, but both have amazing options. Now, outside of these two sets in Space Time Smackdown, where do you go next? And there are a few options that are actually really solid, and then there are a few packs that I think are actually not very good right now. Before we get into the sort of dumpster tier, let's talk about really good packs to open. Our newest set, Triumphant Light, is a very good set to start opening. Even if you haven't opened anything else, you can make a lot of really cool decks just out of Triumphant Light. A huge reason behind that is the link between Arceus and a lot of these cards, right? So you can make an Arceus Carnivine, Arceus Heatran, Abomasnow, Raichu, Magnezone, Tyranitar. There are so many good links that you can make with this. It also has access to really cool cards like Sudowoodo that is incredibly powerful. You have access to things like Origin Form Palkia, Glaceon, Leafeon. All of these are really solid cards. I wouldn't say it is full of the most meta cards in the game. It does feel like the mini sets, which are Mythical Island and Triumphant Light, are great complementary sets to what's going on, but I do think that this is a really solid setup. Of course, it contains one of the most powerful supporters in the game right now, and that is Irida, which makes water decks really irritating. I would say this is sort of, you know, like a decent tier. These are like, look for this probably after Space Time Smackdown is where I'd put Triumphant Light. And our next set. Our next set is the only one from Genetic Apex that I would kind of put in the, yeah, you should be opening some of this here, and that would be Charizard. Charizard gives you the access not only to Charizard, which is still one of the most powerful cards in the game. Yes, it's a stage 2, but it can KO anything in a single hit. Sabrina is also in Charizard, and at the same time, you have a lot of powerful cards that you can slide into many different decks. Things like Farfetch'd, things like Greninja that works in many different sets. You also have access to some decent water cards like Starmie, and of course Moltres, which works great for a ton of different fire sets. I wouldn't say this is the absolute best, and maybe it is the lowest in this category of like look for this after, but I do think Genetic Apex Charizard is probably the best Genetic Apex and the only Genetic Apex I would really be spending much time with right now. Our next set that I think is pretty dang good and a good compliment after opening Space Time Smackdown is something like Mythical Island. Mythical Island has a lot of great cards in it. Celebi EX is still a very, very powerful card. Gyarados EX is still very meta relevant and super powerful, while at the same time it has, again, another supporter card that just makes so many decks work. That is Leaf. Leaf is a game-changing card, giving you the ability to retreat something with a 2 retreat cost. This also is where Druddigon was introduced. Surprise, surprise. A Pokemon with 2 retreat costs that was like the meta for the longest time, creating that really, really strong wall so that you can set up the rest of what is going on in your set. There aren't an insane amount of EX Pokemon that I think are amazing here. I think your big ones are Celebi, Gyarados, and Mew. Aerodactyl and Pidgeot are okay. This also is where we got Superior, Vaporeon, and Marshadow, which are all really cool cards. Again, this is not an open first, but after you've gotten some Space Time Smackdown, this is a pretty good deck to move into. Good set. Did I say deck? Good set to move into. And then we kind of have our dumpster tier of cards, which are Mewtwo and Pikachu in Genetic Apex. Mewtwo really doesn't have a lot going on for it right now. You're able to get Venusaur in this set, Articuno EX, Gengar EX, Mewtwo EX, Marowak EX. I mean, these are not stellar cards in the format right now. And of course, at any time with a new set and new tools, new supporters, things like that could change. But it does feel like the meta has passed a lot of these decks by a long time ago. You're not seeing Dragonite do, particularly well. Gengar EX has never really been a solid card. Mewtwo had its day in the sun and now it's spending its time in the shower. So I really don't think that you need to worry too much about Mewtwo at all. The bright lights here are Koga as a supporter, but I'll talk about pack points in a minute. You can get that without opening Mewtwo. And there are a few other decent cards here. I mean, Hitmonlee is a good card. But in general, I don't think there's a lot that you really need to be searching for in Mewtwo. And then we have Pikachu, which also does feel like a lot of the meta has just passed by this set completely. You never really see Arcanine EX. Blastoise gets very little play, but it actually has some moments. Pikachu EX does feel like it's just kind of passed up by a lot of what is in the game right now. You have things like Onix, Hypno, the old Golem. The real shining light in this set, honestly, is Misty. Misty is probably the best thing in the Pikachu set, but you're gonna want to craft that with pack points. So if I had to tell you 2 to stay away from, it's gonna be Mewtwo and Pikachu. If I had to tell you 2 to pull from, it's gonna be Dialga and Palkia. And then those ones in the middle really help complement your set. Let's talk about pack points for a little bit, because I do think this is a good time to talk about where you would spend your pack points depending on what you're opening. So if you open any of the 3 packs in Genetic Apex, or the 2 packs in Space-Time Smackdown, the 1 and 1 in Triumphant Light and Mythical Island, you get 5 pack points for each pack you open. So if you open 2 packs of the day, over a course of a week, you will have 70 pack points. 70 pack points is the exact amount you need to craft a supporter card. So let's just break it down really quick. If I'm in Genetic Apex and I'm opening some Charizard, maybe I can get lucky and I can pull some Sabrinas. That would be great. But with the pack points that you can get from opening Charizard, you can craft Sabrina, Misty, or Giovanni. These are great cards that can be used in a lot of different decks. Erica is a decent card as well for all of your grass decks. It's very, very powerful. But if I'm using pack points in Genetic Apex on the few packs there that I might be opening, I'm definitely looking to craft things like Geo, Misty, Sabrina. For Mythical Island, there is one clear card that I'm looking to craft, and that is Leaf. I think Leaf is incredibly good. It's going to cost 70 pack points, and you're able to get this card very easily. Again, a week of opening Mythical Island, you'll have those 70 pack points. You could craft a Leaf. Maybe you could pull one as well. It is only a 2 diamond. Really, really good card. I would definitely look to craft it. In Space-Time Smackdown, if I'm opening Palkia, I'm looking to craft things like Pokemon Communication, Giant Cape, and Dawn out of the Dialga set, right? And then if I'm opening Dialga, I'm looking to craft things like Cyrus, the Rocky Helm, as well as, there was one other that I really had on my mind. Cyrus, the Rocky Helm. Those are usually kind of the 2 big ones. You could maybe craft Mars at some point. The other thing that you would be looking to craft is something like Manaphy. Manaphy is another 2 diamond card that is incredibly good. And then if I'm pulling Triumphant Light and I'm not able to get it at any point, I would be looking to craft Irida for my water decks. Outside of that, with your pack points in Triumphant Light, you may want to save them for Arceus EX if you are not able to pull it naturally as you're going. It's the strongest EX in the set, and it's a staple in most of the meta right now. There are some other cards that you could talk about crafting, like in Genetic Apex, you could make some arguments that you would want to craft that Magneton from Genetic Apex because it makes so many good Magnezone decks. But again, in general, if I am crafting a lot of GA, it is mostly to get those supporter cards. So I hope this helped. Again, start with Space-Time Smackdown. It's probably the best thing we have going right now. We will have another set coming to the game a little over a month after I make this video, so I might make an update for all of you soon. Let me know what you have opened in the comments and what you think, what you would recommend, what you would not recommend. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. I love you. I'll see you all next time. We did it.